So welcome to this session, which is about fashion education. We have got just two papers this afternoon. Well, lunchtime, where I am anyway. So I think we can just take the time that we have for our presentations and for the questions, and not put limits on anything, and just do it that way. The purpose of my presentation really is to talk to you about the strategic partnership, the EU-funded strategic partnership that we have, that I'm leading actually at Glasgow Caledonian University. And it's about sustainable fashion employability skills. So it's been put into the education sort of section of this, but it really is about a lot more than that. So I'm going to describe a little bit about the project, because we want to get it known as much as possible. Obviously, we want lots of comments, any ideas, and it's really just about disseminating the information. We have done an initial survey with some fashion businesses, and I am going to present the results of that. And I'd be very interested in any comments or anything that you have related to that. So I've called it the journey so far, and there's so many authors on this paper, just because we are a team, and we're all we all participated obviously we all participate in the project, and anything that we're presenting, we're presenting it as part of the all together as part of the project. So just to present myself first. So I'm Lindsey Kerry, so I'm a senior lecturer in the Department of Fashion, Marketing, Tourism and Events. That's a big long sentence. At Glasgow School for Business and Society at Glasgow Caledonian University. And my kind of area of research and teaching actually is in sustainability, consumer behaviour, marketing, predominantly in the luxury and fashion sector. But something that I want to mention here is that it's not only in that sector, it's really interdisciplinary in terms of it crosses over into different sectors, and you'll see from the people that are in the project that it really does cross over into different disciplines. I have a background in industry. I was a marketing manager before I started my career in academia. And I think that served me very well. But I have been in academia now for a while, and these are just some examples of the kind of work that I do. So my latest research was about selling secondhand luxury, and for example, there's a book that's just come out about firms in the fashion industry that I've co-written with some other colleagues. What is the project about? So basically the project is related to identifying sustainability strategies, because what we realized was that the fashion industry is very much vilified, or kind of seen as one of the worst culprits related to environmental issues. And what we want to do is approach this in a slightly different way. So get to know what's happening at the moment. I mean, what are fashion companies actually implementing? Are they implementing sustainability strategies? Where are they implementing them? And then we felt that there was an opportunity, and this is the differentiation for this project. There was an opportunity for seeing that with the development of different sustainable strategies, maybe processes, looking at how to become more sustainable, there would be new jobs that would be created, because these jobs maybe don't exist at the moment, or they're going to have to be changed or reinforced, etc. So really it was about identifying that, and then bring something to the foreground where you can disseminate that information, and seeing it in the positive note that we're trying to, or the fashion industry is trying to address these sustainability issues. And then by doing that, we'll be able to foster something positive, which will be employability, jobs and skills for, in those areas. So that really was the ethos behind the project. These are our partners. So the peculiarity of our project is that we have academic partners, obviously. So EDEC Business School in France, the University of Politécnica de Valencia in Spain, the University of Madeira in Portugal, and University of Villanueva in Spain as well, because these are kind of big areas related to, to fashion and communications and marketing. But also we wanted to include some industry partners, and for that we chose two partners that were willing to come into the project with us. One is Harris Tweed, a company based in the north of Scotland, in the islands, and who have a very circular economy type of operation, because they produce cloth that is weaved in people's houses within the island that they live in, and it's very, very sustainable. But it's sold globally into the big brands, big fashion luxury companies. And Tendam Global Fashion Retail Group, which are a global retail group based in Spain, and who have a lot of retail outlets. They don't have any in the UK, but they do have some very well-known brands across Europe. So that was the picture in terms of our partners. How are we going about doing that? So the project was, the funding was for 3 years. We've got 300,000 euros, which is a great amount for this type of project. We're involving students from all the academic partners, obviously, and they are going to be immersed in some workshops. So we have devised sort of 3 separate workshops, which are going to take place in the countries of our institution. So the first one is going to take place in the Hebrides, which is the islands in Scotland, in June 2022. The second one in Portugal, also in September 2022, and then the third one in Madrid in Spain. And basically what these workshops are going to be are going to involve is getting people from industry, people from communications, people from different backgrounds to come and look at and identify what the sustainability practices are, what can be changed, what can be implemented, and also what employability skills then. So we're training sustainable champions who are then going to be going back into the different, into the workplace, back into the universities, to kind of pass on all that knowledge. It was interdisciplinary because we don't want just people from the business schools, etc. So we have got people from management, business, obviously, programs from fashion. We have also communications, marketing. We have gaming, people who are doing computer games. We've got environmental management students, and we try to kind of, and also engineering. So we try to have as many different disciplines represented as possible, because it's that cross-fertilization that's going to come up with the ideas and the processes that are going to be identified and taken back within this project. What is going to actually be produced? So we're going to have 2 key outputs, and this is what the European Union is expecting from us. So initially a white paper, which is basically the key insights to support the understanding surrounding this area. So we want to know what's going on at the moment, what is being implemented in the fashion industry, and look at that in terms of the skills gap, asking the industry and working with people to see, well, what would they like to implement? What are the next steps? And then, that will identify the skills gap. And then we're going to create a toolkit which will be open to everybody, and which is really for anybody, educators, trainers, etc., which will be able to use and to use these tools that we're going to create. So, for example, we might do something like podcasts explaining about specific areas related to zero waste pattern cutting, for example, or raw materials related to where the supply chain, how that impacts sustainability. So at all different areas, and we're going to create tools that people are going to be able to use then to either educate, or practical tools, or tools that are going to help the understanding for these different areas, and that are going to help businesses as well identify what these employability skills are. So what we started with, because we had to start somewhere, and obviously we, all the people that are involved in the project and have some sort of insight into the sustainability on one side and the fashion industry on the other, not always together, because that was the whole point of putting all these different mix of people together. So we decided to do a base survey where we get as many responses as we can related to what was happening in the industry. So we distributed a survey to 200 companies. We got professionals, so we used our industry partners for their networks. We used our own networks within the whole, all the different academic institutions that we had, and we were targeting people. So it wasn't just sending it, we were actually targeting the professionals within the fashion companies. And we wanted people, across the board. So in retail, in design, and production, and supply chain. So we really wanted as wide as possible a coverage, and we set out the survey from December 20 to March 2021. We got 81 responses, which we deemed wasn't bad in terms of we are targeting specific people. This is not just this is not a consumer survey. This is people who work in, so this is industry responses from people who work in the fashion industries in different areas. 9 countries were represented. Most of the people were between 0 and 10 years, or at the other end, 25 years of work experience, and everybody else was kind of in the middle of that. And as you can see, it was quite a range of different sections that were represented. So manufacturing, production, communications, let's call it, e-commerce, comms and marketing, and then some from design as well, and others kind of, on the fringes of these different areas. So we did get quite a range of responses. What was the data capture tool? Obviously, it was created according to some of the information that was already out there. We didn't reinvent the wheel. If there was some information that we could get, or survey items, etc., that we could use, we did. But basically, it covered these different areas. So, what sustainable practices are you doing? In what areas of your business are they implemented? Do you have, this is an important question, do you have either a sustainability department or somebody who's responsible for sustainability within your company? Do you communicate on all these processes and actions? If there's something that you do in a sustainable way, do you actually communicate about it? Do you think you have a responsibility as a business in the creation of awareness of sustainability for consumers? Is that something that you feel responsible for, or is that something that is devolved to either the government or to academics or to education, etc.? The traceability of products, how important that is or not within your business, and whether you think there's a bigger place for regulation and certification, or how you as a company approach that, and what are your thoughts about it. So that was kind of like the main area that the data capture tool covered. Okay, so 80%. So this, I'm just going to go into. I'm going to highlight some of the responses, not all of them, obviously, but highlight some of them that I think for this particular forum is important. Is interesting. So 80% of the companies said that they had put in place some sustainable practices, and mostly, as you can see here, the areas that were highlighted were raw materials, which kind of expect, sustainable, so the supply chain, some in the manufacturing process, and mostly, the two kind of areas were factory machinery and sustainable factory processes as well. So these were kind of the areas that came back as where they said were the most sustainable practices actually happened. And where were the areas that they didn't come up in? Retail spaces. 75% of respondents said that they were not involved in sustainability actions related to their retail spaces or where their products were being retailed. And very important that the responsibility for sustainability is very mixed. So 23% have a specific person or department, doesn't have to be a department, but a specific person who's responsible for that within their company. 16% said they don't have a specific person for only sustainability, but it's a shared responsibility with other functions as well. And what we thought was very interesting, that 16% absolutely disagree that there should be somebody with that responsibility within their company. So it's we thought that was interesting because we're not there yet in terms of taking responsibility for that area. And I thought that to have the extreme kind of response to have absolutely disagree with that, I thought was quite noteworthy to point that out. We also asked them whether they knew of specific companies that they not themselves, but that they thought were interesting, or who they thought were implementing or communicating about sustainability in a positive way. And as you can see here, there's lots. In fact, the responses were very varied, and that's maybe something lesson to take away from that. But the market is not polarized yet, or there is quite a range of companies out there that are doing different things. But this is what came up as the kind of and you find the Patagonia, EcoAlf as kind of like this the main players, or you'd expect to see them there. But people like Zara, Inditext, maybe not so well known for their sustainable areas. So quite an interesting kind of overlap of what people in the industry see as the important players here. Okay. What we asked about was, do you communicate on sustainable actions? Because I think that was an interesting question in terms of, is it important for you to be able to communicate about it? And actually 22% said they did not communicate about it. And again, that was kind of interesting, because if you think at the beginning, when 85% said yes, we have sustainable actions, but then 22% are saying, well, we're not communicating about them. There's a difference there. So I think there's some confusion or some reticence to sometimes communicate about it, because I think it opens the doors then to people coming back and saying, well, you're not doing enough, or you're, so there is definitely a reticence within the fashion industry to communicate about that. And I think this is what I said at the beginning about the discourse being all about the fashion industry being one of the main culprits of kind of environmental issues. I think that really comes through in this survey. Okay, so when we asked them, when they did communicate, the areas they communicate most about is creation of collections with less items, longer lasting design, higher quality garments, and promoting circular economy, etc., etc. So there's many more, as we realize, many more areas that they could be communicating on in terms of sustainability practices. And we felt that it was very polarized, the areas that are being communicated on, and very polarized, the areas that sustainability is being considered. It's not yet across the board, across the supply chain or across the different areas of the company, and that's something that came out quite strongly. Okay, so just a few conclusions, and then I'll open it up to for your questions. There are some contradictions. I think it comes back to this area that I was talking about before, about there are good things that are implemented. It's very fragmented. There still needs to be a sort of more cohesive approach and a cohesive discourse for companies or for fashion industry people, because they are still very much polarized in terms of doing specific things in their own and not communicating too much about it, not having that industry voice which is strong enough to communicate about it. There's a lack of diversity of sustainability across different areas and sections of the company. Definitely is very much focused on specific areas and not seen as something that runs through the company. Obviously, this is, not everybody is in that case, but that's what came out of the survey quite strongly. The responsibility for sustainability still needs to be defined. Who's responsible for that within a company, and is it worth having that person or department within as identified? And that's not there yet either. But what this gives us is a real opportunity, because we can be looking at different processes, different employment opportunities, and probably at the end of the day more transparency, because that really at the end of the day is what the consumers are looking for, and what this project is about identifying these gaps, seeing them as opportunities for employment, but for other areas as well, but also to enable the transparency and for consumer for consumers to be able to have that information as well. So just as a last conclusion, before I open it up for any questions or any comments that you have, we are going to have, because we're based in Glasgow, obviously, we are going to have a panel discussion with some of our industry partners and some environmentalists as well, about supported by the university and the project at COP26. It's going to be a webinar, and some of these areas are going to be discussed in more detail. So it's for me it's a privilege to be able to talk about the project, because it's obviously something that I'm passionate about. But I really want, I'm completely open to comments and inputs and anything that you want to discuss with me. So thank you for letting me speak about it. And if anybody wants has any questions or comments, please go ahead. And I'll stop sharing my screen and go back onto the chat. Any comments or questions?
Maybe, Lindsey, I can tell something for icebreaking.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, obviously. Yes, on you go.
So thanks a lot for your very fresh presentation. It was nice to see a project that is similar to what I will present, but not exactly the same. So we are testimonial of some European projects that are dealing with the education of students within the future skills that they have to bring in the future profession. I was wondering if you have any extra information about the workshop that are going to be launched in 2022. I mean, it's about which kind of I don't know, topics you are going to develop and how long they are. So a bit more on the organizational and instructional terms.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. So there are going to be residential workshops because we thought that that was the best way of really focusing down on the the areas of the project. So we have divided the project into 6 areas. The first 2 are related to raw materials and design. So that's kind of the areas we're focusing on for the first project. And then we're going on to supply chain and, supply chain and production are the next 2. And then we've got, I think the last 2 are emissions and biodiversity. And basically each workshop is going to be focusing on 2 of these different areas. And what we're kind of looking and how they will be organized is going to be very much about, obviously they're being organized in conjunction with our industry partners, and that's one of the areas that's why we chose some industry partners. But we're going to get people from industry. We're going to have obviously the academics that work within that area as well, and we're going to have specific outputs that come from that. So we're going to get the participants to look at these specific areas like raw materials and design, and try and think about what the sustainable actions or what they consider sustainability, what the main sort of sustainable processes, etc., are related to that, and maybe think about ways how to communicate about them, what they think the employability skills would be related to, related to if it was within a company, how they could implement that, and does that mean that there would be a new employability skill related to that, and then create some outputs that explains that to other people, or to break down the skill, or so we have kind of got like an idea as to for each big area there will be like 3 parts to the toolkit. There will be kind of different areas related to it. So yeah, we have so that's kind of the idea behind it, that it's going to be kind of creating these toolkit outputs for the workshops, and at the same time being able to, first of all, engaging students in mobility, because that's important, across disciplines, because that's important as well, and creating their own employable, really focusing on their own employability skills, and creating these sustainable champions that I was talking about. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight into what it would be.
Thank you. And do you have a website?
Yes,
of the project?
I will put it here in the message. Yeah. So it's FES_EU, and that's for social media. So we have Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and a website. So if you put that on, you'll get all the social media from that as well.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, if we're interested in participating as students, is that an option? Unfortunately, it's not, because it's the students from the different institutions that are part of the project. But what you can get involved in, as I said, with the if you go onto all the social media, etc., and follow that, there will be opportunities to get involved in kind of more virtual events or different things that once the project opens up into into the different outputs that we have, there will definitely be opportunities. So if you go onto the to the social media, etc., and if you follow us there, that these opportunities will be advertised there. Any other? Okay, great. Well, since we're, I suppose that Daria, if you want to just take over from here, then you can do your presentation and we can have a chat after that. So I'll switch off and then we can listen to you. So over to you, Daria.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see it.
If you see the presentation full screen and just it, I hope so. Yeah. So I'm today the speaker for this group of people, which is professors from 2 different universities. So from Politecnico di Milano, Department of Design, and from Delft University of Technology, talking about how we are trying to develop a fashion tech educational model. So it's not now sustainability as the previous project, but it's about fashion tech, which is not disjointed by sustainability at all. And the idea is to hybridize design, engineering, and business management education in a whole complex, convergent model for all the students to get new skills for the future. So in a way, we are related. So here you will see the faces. There is a young me. Here I am an assistant professor at Politecnico di Milano, where I am also a researcher and professor at the School of Design. And I generally focus on technology and how this influences the methods, the processes and techniques of the design culture, but also the society in terms of socio-cultural acceptance and perception. And of course, because of technology, we have always to talk about sustainability, that is an holistic view of the matter as designers, and I generally approach it as an holistic way with environmental, social, cultural, and economical impacts. So I will start with this definition, that is that we are taking care of the education of future fashion tech talents. That is meaning taking care of the future development of the fashion tech sector and industry, which is maybe not really at the emergency state, because it's many years that we see it evolving, even though it's spreading in different kind of sectors. But we with the overall aim of applying the technology with a responsible innovation, because we need to have an inclusive, equitable, resilient, and digital sustainable change. And these particular activities we are developing inside the Fashion Tech Alliance, which is a project, a 3 years academia industry partnership. Is a knowledge exchange, knowledge alliance and Erasmus Plus project that is aimed to facilitate the exchange, the flow of knowledge between the universities and companies. So we have both HIs, so high education institutions, and companies that are coming from different parts of the supply chain. And the idea is the co-creation together of the fashion tech world by investigating which are the skills that have to be present in the future professionals, and this is to boost the students' employability and innovation potential. It is 3 years. We are actually at the middle of the project, so we are running the end of the second year. And we have several things to do, but specifically one of these is to run some educational experiences. So some learning experiences that might support this exchange between the companies and academia, but also to test some learning models and educational models for students to boost their fashion tech skills. It's a big consortium because we are 12 partners plus one associate, so 12 full partners and one associate from the 6 program countries. There are 5 fashion design engineering HIs that are Politecnico di Milano, you see here UAL London College of Fashion, then we have TU Delft, and we have the University of Boris. And finally, STI, which is a school of engineering in France. Then we have a leading large fashion and apparel enterprise, which is Decathlon. 5 small and medium enterprises, which represents the full ecosystem of the supply chain segments that are Stental, Graded Zero Innovation, We Love You, which is a communication agency. Then we have Pauline van Dongen Studio based in the Netherlands. We have PESPO, which is based in Italy. And we have one research technology organization, which is based in Belgium. It's Centexpel, and one associate large enterprise, which is PVH. You might have interest. You may be interested in seeing their digital portfolio about fashion tech at this link. But the idea here is to consider how important is the convergence education, so converging between different disciplines. And it's very important because companies of the future are in need of future-proof talented professionals which have specific disciplinary interests in their specifically disciplinary domain, which could be fashion tech, or engineering, let's say. So in between, but also broader interdisciplinary knowledge, what is called the T-skilled future professionals. And so here there are 3 main subjects, which are science, technology, and humanities and social sciences. But the convergence education might be involving, as also Lindsey was telling before, many more disciplinary fields that are converging together. It means that meanwhile you study and you develop, for example, a project together inside this interdisciplinary context, then you achieve also soft skills, which increase, for example, the creative problem solving abilities, but also the ability to communicate between disciplines that might have different linguistic and different glossaries. And this is very important, even though the Bologna process established a sort of quality, basic quality for HIs all over the Europe. Actually, it's very important to test if we can cooperate in the same environment within the same courses. So the examples of convergent educational experiences in fashion tech are already existing. In particular, the main ones are focusing on the merge between fashion design, which has a creative thinking approach, and the engineering side, which has a problem solving and a focus on technology. These 2 main disciplinary sectors are generally focusing on a specific field of the fashion tech, which is the smart garments and smart wearables. Instead, we know that fashion tech is a very wide and fluid sector, which is considering also the digital impact, so the impact of digital technologies in the transformation of the whole fashion supply chain and production chain, that is impacting not only the products, but also the processes and the systems. And so we have also considered the fact that it's not enough to have fashion design and engineering within fashion tech, but it's also important to have business management, so the economics and social sciences side of the disciplinary convergence. And finally, we have not to forget that sustainability is something that is not a discipline, is something that we have to consider and convey among the different disciplinary sectors in a unique way of dealing with new solutions and new innovations in terms of product, processes, and systems. So actually, we are trying to understand in our project which are the most viable guidelines on which educational curricula, models, and practices could be established to nurture the future fashion tech skills. And this is actually something that we are dealing nowadays by running several courses that I will explain in the next slides. So this is actually during the organization and implementation of this learning experience, we were also asking ourselves, how can we boost the dialogue and the knowledge exchange between these three disciplinary sectors, which are technology, design, and business management, or engineering, fashion design, and economics, and which are the challenges or the limitation, but also the benefits and advantages of this convergence fashion tech education, both in organizational and instructional terms. So I will very fast tell you that this was not the first project we've made. There was a preliminary project which was called Edu for Fashion Tech and was made between 3 universities, asking themselves about what could be the fashion tech curriculum. And they ended up with at least creating this convergence between the 3 main engineering, design, and the social sciences and humanistic part of the economics, where sustainability was included and encapsulated already. From this, we made 3 focus groups with companies to understand if the ideas developed in the previous project were really finding a merge on what the companies were expecting from the future talents in fashion tech. So you see there were 3 digital focus groups dealt with PVH, We Love You, and Decathlon, but also other companies that are not related to fashion. So not fashion brands, but tech companies, or for example, ICT operators which are entering the fashion tech world and competition. The methodology then to realize this learning experience that I was talking about, and I will explain it further, were stemming from these focus groups. So the results that we get from the companies. Then we made a desk research about the pedagogical models that might create a more innovative didactic approach, which were related to the challenge-based learning, the flipped classroom, and the social learning. And then we designed together among the 5 universities a learning experience, instructional co-design, so a participatory approach where also the companies were sometimes involved to create contents and to create also the brief. So the support of the companies is very important. We ended up with a series of guidelines and approaches on which we have implemented the 3 learning experience, which works as pilot of this kind of structure. I have to say that unfortunately we have dealt with COVID-19 sanitary situation in our implementation of the courses. So actually everything has been realized digitally, and this has pros and cons. Of course, the pros is that we had no other alternative. Unfortunately, we couldn't have resident students coming from different university and joining in one university working in phase, but we remotely worked by implementing some tools and some digital tools that were meant to enable their exchange of knowledge among them. So this was related also to the learning flexibility. the fact that we implemented a series of activities and we structured the learning experiences in different moments so that we could have them participating even though there were misalignment on the academic calendar. I might say that the learning experience were 8 weeks long, so they were not workshops of 1 week, but long courses to establish a more strong relationship among the students, but also to make the, let's say, theoretical pillars that we gave as the theoretical basis of the learning more integrated in their activities of design. So there was a common glossary definition at the very beginning with the theoretical pillars, but also the possibility to take a personalized learning. So we created a series of video lectures, and students were enabled to take the lectures that they were more interested or they were more lacking in knowledge, and with their own path, because this part was given in an asynchronous mode. And the idea was to have this part based on the multidisciplinarity exchange. So people were studying and were learning under the same topic, but from different perspective, disciplinary perspective. But the second part was based on real world challenges. The challenges were defined in conjunction between companies and universities, and were taken from the reality of the companies and the fashion tech evolutionary sector we are living in. And in this part, students were working together in interdisciplinary and international teams, and they really get an interdisciplinary learning there, where also companies were involved in tutoring, and there was a sort of good interaction and engagement between the companies, because there was a real world challenges that was coming up from a brief of the company and the students. Openness is related to the fact that all the lectures that we have provided have become open educational resources, as I will tell you in a couple of minutes. So this I can skip because I already said, as you see, our university were almost covering the 3 design, engineering, and business and management sectors, sometimes overlapping, but never completely. So we were in a way trying to develop our lectures and our educational and learning experience in a way that every student coming from the different university could see his own discipline, but also the others. This was the structure. The theoretical pillars were divided in modules. So we had design modules, methodological modules, technological modules, and business modules. And these were, let's say, given asynchronously. Then in the asynchronous mode, there was the defined, so with a brief from the company and the company visits that were unfortunately but digital, and the challenge-based design that was starting with the research and concept creation, the concept development, the prototype, and user testing. The most innovative stuff here was that students were dealing to the project in a systemic way. So they were dealing with the design phase, but also with the business development, but also with the project management and so forth. So to develop, for example, a unique vision from different perspectives, and then a final delivery within the results. These were the 3 learning experiences we have implemented. As you see, the first one, Fashion Tech Interline, was launched in January-March 2021, and it was a pilot organized by us within the involved companies that were Graduate Zero Innovation and PESPO, which were internal. And then external, we had a lot of startup, because this particular course was referred to the virtual dimension of fashion design. So the digital and virtual 3D modeling and the visualization of garments in a digital realm, reaching the metaverse design. Then in these days, we are running 2 courses which are quite parallel, let's say, but not exactly the same. They are the secret life of clothing, exploring garment interaction, and the scalability of multidisciplinary fashion tech solutions, which is focusing on addressing future sustainability challenge inside the fashion tech system. The first one is mainly organized by the University of Arts of London College of Fashion, and the second one is led by the University of Boris. I'm going to talk more on the first one and the second one. And I mean, the results of these two are in progress, so I can't share anything since they are not released. Fashion Tech Interlines, as I said, it's about the virtual fashion dimension of fashion design. These were the students selected for the first, so 20 students coming from all the different universities with a different weight, but trying to balance when they made the group, the interdisciplinarity among the 50 students and the 10 group we created. You see here the convergence area of fashion tech. Here in this diagram, you see the three main areas or disciplines I was discussing before. So design and communication, where fashion is central, then technology and engineering, and then human, social, psychological, and economic context. And in bold, in black, you see all the skills that were implemented in these courses and are related to disciplinary elements. So, for example, human-centered design, but also convergent and interdisciplinary skills that are related to the merge of design and technology, like, for example, 3D modeling for fashion, CAD drawing, 3D digital simulation of physical properties, AR, VR, but also more in detail skills that are more interdisciplinary, including also psychological and economical context, like, for example, the impact of data and the data science, the AI ethics and policy making, for example, were all included in this course. These were the modules that were developed, and some of them, as you see, the modules are disciplinary because at this level they were working separately, so individually, and as I said, every student could take his own path. So design students could take design lectures, but could also go to the business management part, because of course it's part of exchange of knowledge among disciplines. In the challenge-based learning, they were exploring together within a brief, so they were designing together a capsule collection that was not only the project of the garments, but also the platform and the business model of the garment. So they were exploring the opportunities of the digitalization of fashion, considering the digital technologies in the way they transform the wool fashion, but not only in the design perspective, also in the production, in the selling and consumption processes, and how they are impacting also the business's model to make it more smart, but also more efficient and sustainable, and maybe also resilient. And what they got at the end of the experience was that they were able together, so the 5 different students from 5 different universities were able to 3D model to represent the garments within rendering, so, and create, for example, metaverse. So let's say digital universe where these garments would exist, and they were also exchanging the point of view from engineering side, which has this focus on technology, toward the design approach, which has these aesthetical, conceptual, and cultural intangible aspects that are included, of course, in the concept design, in the material, and in the research. And in general, they grasp the importance of the societal challenge of their solution, the user-oriented research, but also the ability to include new business models and the ability to create their ideas with a sort of entrepreneurial attitude. And of course, they were trying to explore this impact of their solutions in terms of sustainability, but not just economical and environmental, also social and cultural. The Secret Life of Clothing is the second course we are running nowadays. It's about smart e-digital connected textile and wearables. These are the skills that are more important and emerging. So the important is, going deep on the smart textile prototyping, but mostly not only smart material, the integration of technologies and the coding and all these engineering parts which are included inside the garments, but also the importance of user interaction, because these garments are interactive, so they are connected, they are digital, and they create data. And also data science is the other emerging skills that students might have, because they have to consider how data are used, which data can be used, and how to enhance, for example, the usage of smart garments throughout the use, and not only in a couple of moments when you buy the smart wearable or the smart garment and then you lose your interest in using it, which is emerging from the research. These were the theoretical pillars that were informing the activities of the students in the challenge-based part. As you see, there was a lot of related to the sustainability side in terms of materials, but also in terms of methodology, in terms of let's say production models, and also in terms of design methodology. So how to measure the impact of a smart garment, but also the low-tech prototyping methodology, because I remind you that we are dealing with digital learning experience, so they are not able to prototype directly, and so they have to use different kind of prototyping techniques along with ethnographic research to understand why the user might be really interested in getting smart wearables, and also which are the data that I'm interested in. And also, of course, the part related to technology and business management. But I don't want to go very in detail. I may, if you have questions on that side, I can, of course, answer. So the scope here was to learn how to design better user interactions with these smart garments with a higher environmental, social, and economic sustainable commitment. So the designer commitment, but also the engineering commitment and the business commitment. Why? And students are going to work on data that can be retrieved and revealed by fashion wearable technology. So at the moment, they are running the research phase, which is a research informed by the design ideation of an interactive wearable technology, informed by the user-centered experience, the user interaction, and also the engineering side. As to conclude, we are running the second and third learning experience, so this is not finalized, but from what I see, what we have seen from the first learning experience, we know that there are some limitation and constraints, both in terms of organization and instructional, but also advantages and benefits. And what's important is that, of course, in organizational terms, these kind of courses are very demanding in terms of organization, because the academic rules of the universities are different, and there is academic misalignment among the universities. So students are coming from different universities, and they have different academic commitment, and also the bureaucratic procedures for each universities are different. And from the instructional aspects, there are different teaching expectations, of course, because there are many, because of course we need to exchange and to create a common language also among the teaching staff, and different quality criteria perceived by the different universities. So the Bologna process of 2005 has not really achieved practically the standardization, let's say, to the highest quality level that was expected. On the other side, the advantages and benefits are that, of course, the common glossary and the shared teaching methodologies for teaching staff, but also the language of fashion tech among different disciplines in terms from the point of view of students is a richness that this project has reached. And on the instructional aspect, this shared digital literacy that is being released, also open, makes it viable and usable also from students that are out of the universities that are included in the Fashion Tech Alliance. And it was meant to be to create a network with other universities to grow up and to test similar experiences together. It's creating transversal skill, it's creating collaboration across disciplines, it's making the students see a project from different point of views to certainly define the shaped skills that are actually interesting from the future fashion tech business. So here I just placed some of the deliverables that we have created. There is this deliverable which is focusing about the integrated industry fashion tech curriculum model that was defined after the focus group I was mentioning before. So it's a point of view on how to create a fashion tech curriculum model that integrates the point of view of the universities and the companies. This is the project-based learning modules deliverable, talking about how we designed the modules and the learning experiences. And these are the lectures. So the lectures that we have created, at least for the first course, because of course the second and the third course are running, so we are making them available in the next month, are released and open to everybody to be used in their courses. So it's like a teaching staff tools. And also the first learning experience results are released and made public in case you are interested in watching what the students were able to create. This is the bibliographic reference, and I think it's enough from me. I hope I was clear enough, and if you have questions, please, I'm here.
Hi, Dyer. That was really fascinating, and for me, gosh, I'm excited because it's so close. You know, it feeds so well into the project that I'm leading. That it's really, you know, when you said you were kind of presenting a similar project, it's really very, very convergent in a lot of ways. So thank you so much for that. I'll open up to the group. If anybody has any questions or any comments for Daria, I've got the chat open as well, so you can put them through there if you want to do that instead of putting your microphone on. So please feel free to do that.
I just cut and paste the project.
Yes, no, thank you. That's great. Can I ask who's leading on the project? Who's the lead?
We are the lead. The project coordinator is Politecnico di Milano. Yes.
Right. Okay, great. So I've got a question related to you talked about the pedagogical models, and I'm really interested in that in terms of how you went. The three that you identified were the
challenge-based learning.
Yeah,
there was the flipped classroom, and there was the social learning.
Yeah, no, I've got them down here, and I think probably so. You've obviously gone for the challenge-based learning, is that right? Yeah. So I just wondered why you chose that one particularly, if there was any consideration of the other ones beforehand, and how it worked. Because I'll continue because as you identified, the workshops that we're going to do are going to be very short, and yours are over the 8-week period that you told us about. So I was just wondering if there was a, if you had any kind of insights into that area and why you chose that and how it fitted into the timescale of the actual workshops.
Yeah, so we as I mentioned, the FD Alliance stemmed from a previous project that was called Edu for Fashion Tech. Inside Edu for Fashion Tech, which ended in 2019, I think, there were 3 workshops that were realized, and they were very short. So it was like 1 week, very sharp in time activities for students that were taking their mobilities, and there was no COVID-19, so it was kind of easier. And from that side, then we wrote the second project, which was FD Alliance. And the idea there was to pilot longer courses that could be sort of elective courses inside the universities, because these kind of courses might be implemented and become real courses that are offered as collaborative classes among the universities. I mean, for having 5 universities collaborating together as we did in the first course, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare because, as I said, there are a lot of organizational issues regarding misalignments of calendars. So even though it seems super nice, but then you face the reality. And for the challenge-based learning, we actually wrote it in the proposal. So we were aware that we were doing this kind of approach, that we're giving the students a challenge that could be, a very simple challenge, or like, let's say, face a problem like sustainability issues in relation to recyclability of garments. But we didn't know in the beginning the topics. So the topics were stemming from the conversations with the companies and how the fashion tech is evolving. So, for example, the Fashion Tech Interline was about the digital dimension of fashion, because we were actually in the moment that fashion was going is still going that direction, but everything was digital, and the digital catwalks, digital shows, the digital design. So it was really the moment, and also because we were dealing with the learning experience in digital. So, we couldn't touch materials, we couldn't correct any pattern making face to face with students. So it was a perfect example of everything digital and so the challenge-based learning was already there, and it was chosen because it seems from literature review that boosts the problem-solving skills of students and their interdisciplinary exchange. The other flipped classroom, it's a kind of, we included that somehow, but not really so much, that you ask students to go deep in a problem, or like study their own path and make their pitch in front of the others to explore specific problems, so that you reverse the classroom. And this was, to make them more responsible on what they were researching, and giving back to the classroom. The social learning was used to enhance the engagement and interaction within the contents, but also within them, because of course we had the problem of digital students spread in Europe, but also abroad, because we had also foreign students enrolled in European universities that were, in Brazil and in China. So, and the idea was to make them interacting more, so using more the interaction tools. We actually have used, for example, a Miro board that was in a way creating a digital classroom in, let's say, the interaction of a classroom on a digital world, so that they could see what the other were doing. The feedback were open, so they were, there was also peer review between students, not only teachers, but they were not, the challenge-based learning was the one that we selected because of the literature review that says that it's the best way for students to engage with a problem and make it personal, go inside and dive into a specific interest they have to find a solution.
So just to get this right, so when the initial bid, it was always for a digital format. It was never going to be, or was it going to be face to face?
No, in the proposal we wrote generically, so there was nothing related to physical or digital, but we've been forced by COVID-19, and so uniformity of format, we have decided to be digital in the three, even though maybe the ones that are running now, they might be blended, for example. But the next step of this project is to have residencies. So students are going to develop their kind of thesis or internship inside the companies, and then they have to go there and develop the project inside. So we are going back, if if the sanitary situation allows, we are going back to face-to-face activities.
Yeah, so that was my next question, was what's the next step for the project? So that's, where the future goes for that. I don't want to take up all the time, but just the last thing I wanted to say before, if anybody else has anything they want to say, is that there are many things that you've identified within the project. For example, the skills. Yeah. That would feed directly into our project. So I wonder if we could have maybe an offline conversation about that, about how we could collaborate in that area.
Yeah. About the skills, we have been defining them through that focus groups within the companies. And there is a deliverable already available. And after that, we have designed, actually it was UAL, and so London College of Fashion, the work package leader of that part. They were designing 8 job profiles for future-proof job profiles. They are not just 8. The 8 are to cluster the different job roles. Inside there are different positions, and you can find them on the website. And of course, we are available to any exchange and networking. And it's always welcome to exchange knowledge and results, or methodologies in between the European projects and universities.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you, Isabel. I see you're in our group, and thank you so much for putting us together, because I think it's really been, for me anyway, really fascinating to hear about that project and to see so many synergies.
Yes, it's amazing, because even if we don't have the opportunity to be, face to face, I think that we all are learning a lot from other people, and having the opportunity to take these contacts with us. Because I was just going to ask Daria, in terms of the skills, if you have, I was not here from the beginning, so forgive me if I go into something that you have explained already. So in terms of the technical skills, the students that you received in this project, do they have the same kind of skills, or do they do some kind of selection in terms of the skills, the technical skills that they should have?
So for the skills, we have been working on a sort of diagram to see which are the skills that are belonging to disciplines and which are the, let's say, the interconnected ones. So where the hybrid fashion tech professional is emerging. And the students that were selected actually may have no specific skills already inside the fashion tech. So we didn't select them because they had previous experience in the field, but from fashion design, they were they were enrolled in the fashion courses here at Politecnico. So they may have encountered some courses of fashion tech, but not specifically. So they might have some technical skills before, but it's not. We didn't cut out the ones that they had not this kind of skill. So if they were not able to 3D model, it was not a problem, because in the asynchronous path that we offered, we gave them tutorials and all the links to let's say, teach yourself to be able to do that. But if there was a student that was an expert or higher level, I mean, he was just skipping this part, not doing this lecture, and taking only the ones that, I mean, he was feeling missing or he wanted to improve more. So there was not, I mean, we kind of personalized the curriculum in a way that you can enter if you are a novice, if you have an intermediate or an expert mode. And I mean,
and many times in terms of communication, I see that people are going more and more for tutorials and in the internet. And in terms of these specific course, did you have that? Did you have some kind of students who were experts and would put some experiences, would share some of their experience, or they would go for the group? Because sometimes in terms of industry, it's very it is one of the things that is required, is to be able to work as a team. And if you mix people with different backgrounds, and that could also be very interesting to have training on this kind of issue. I don't know.
Yeah, actually, the idea, I mean, the convergence education that I was mentioning in the beginning it was already in the project. So, but it was reinforced when we interviewed the company, and they were saying that in this kind of project, they generally have multidisciplinary groups. So people coming from different disciplines working together. And the lack there is the communication. So it's lacking, I mean,
that's right,
the glossary that they do not know, and I mean also the ability to interact together. So after a while they get into the group projects, but then in the very beginning it's really difficult for them. So the idea to pilot these courses was also to enable the students to start to talk with other disciplines, to understand that I mean, there was also a sort of stigma, that engineers have this impression of design students, like, okay, they do aesthetics and that's it. And on the other side, for example, students from fashion design were scared by the 3D modeling, for example, because for them it was like, I don't know how to deal with this digital world. But then after a while, I mean, they took it as something they had to do for the course to be able to interact together. So actually there were students that I said were more expert, and maybe they were kind of driving the activities more, but in a way they were all converging onto the same solution. So everyone was bringing his own disciplinary field, trying to implement a solution that was in a way interconnecting. We have, as I'm placing into the chat, the open educational resources that we have
that's wonderful.
used. They are video lectures. Of course, we had video lectures, quiz, and the answers, but we do not place the quiz part inside YouTube. And they are not all, for example, the tutorials that you were mentioning. We had tutorials, for example, for the software, but I mean, these are things that maybe also you may find also in YouTube. So we didn't include it, but we did it for the students, because we knew that, for example, I mean, traditional fashion is not already there in using this kind of technologies, even though there were some students very, very proactive that became really expert in 2 weeks, 3 weeks of their own activities and learning.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much.